Welcome to the CloudCannon Hugo Starter Guide. This tutorial is going to give you a quick overview of how to get your Hugo site on CloudCannon and set it up so it's ready to hand off to content editors. So what is CloudCannon? CloudCannon is a Git-based CMS for websites built with a static site generator, such as Hugo. With CloudCannon, you can build and maintain your Hugo site with regular Git workflows and have your content team easily update and manage the content without knowing anything about Hugo, Git, Markdown, or even HTML. I'm assuming you've already got a Hugo site in a Git repository. CloudCannon supports GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab. The next step is to connect this repository to CloudCannon. Once you're signed up for CloudCannon, it's time to set up your first site. So we're going to build with our own files, since we already have an existing site. We'll give a name to the site. We'll select the Git provider that my Hugo site's hosted on. And then we need to authenticate that Git provider to give CloudCannon access. From there, CloudCannon will list your repositories, and I just need to find the repository that I'm looking for. For the branch, I'm going to select Use Existing and then select my branch. If I'm just trying out CloudCannon, I could select Create New. It'll create a new branch, and that gives you a good chance to try out CloudCannon without impacting your main branch. Now select Sync Files and move on to the next step. CloudCannon's automatically detected that I'm using Hugo for this site. If it gets it wrong, you can select the correct static site generator from the list. If I need to specify any command line parameters for my build, this is the place to do it. Maybe I need an environment variable, I have a custom source directory, base URL. There's a number of things that you might have if you have a more complex Hugo site. In this case, it's a pretty straightforward Hugo site, so I don't need to set any build options. So I can click Build Site. That's going to trigger CloudCannon to build the site, and in my case, it's built successfully, which is great. I have a live preview URL up here, which is unindexed by search engines, and clicking on that is going to take me to a live version of my site. If the site fails to build, you have some debugging work to do. Have a look at the build output down here. Check why it failed, double check your build settings, and try again. It's possible that you need to run extra commands before or after your build to get the site in the right state. For example, if you're using PostCSS, you'll need to install some npm packages. On CloudCannon, you can run extra build commands at different points of the build using a build hook. And you can see our build hook documentation for more details there. If you can't figure it out, don't hesitate to get in touch with our support team. We're always here to help. Now that we've got the site built, let's go through a quick tour of CloudCannon to help you understand the interface. First up, we have the dashboard. This gives an overview of your site and any recent activity. This is a brand new site, so there's no activity. Usage gives an indication of the current build time and the bandwidth for the month. Again, this is a brand new site, so not a lot of data there. Pages list the pages in your root page bundle, and clicking on a page will open it in an editing interface. Other root level page bundles will list in the sidebar. In this case, we've got a post page bundle for the blog, and all my blog posts are listed here. The data files are listed in the data section, and then all these other options are only available to the developers on your CloudCannon account. Editors will only see these top ones. So quickly running through these, status shows you the current status of your Git syncing and build. Files shows you the source files on your site. Report shows your recent activity and some other reports. And then settings is all the settings for your site. So there are 4 ways to manage content on CloudCannon. There's the visual editor, content editor, data editor, and source editor. And each is useful in different situations. Let's go through each one. So the visual editor is the most intuitive way to edit content on CloudCannon. Editable elements are indicated by a yellow box. Editors can click on the element and update their content. The visual editor also features a sidebar for managing front matter content. You can customize these inputs and give your editing team a more intuitive interface. For example, having a date picker for a date field, or adding a small comment to indicate how this element is used, or perhaps a select box which references another page. There's really a lot that you can do here, and we'll dive into that later in this tutorial. Next up is the content editor, which is a rich text editor for Markdown files. It's particularly useful for long-form content where you want a distraction-free, clean writing interface. And just like the visual editor, the content editor also has the sidebar with the front matter data in here. Here we can see the date picker that I described before. Also has a title. I can add categories and rearrange them. And I can select an author, which is referencing a data file. Next, we have the data editor. This is the same interface as the sidebar on both the visual editor and content editor, only this time it's full screen. And it's used to manage YAML, TOML, JSON, CSV, and TSV files that you would find in your data folder. And finally, we have the source editor. This is an in-browser code editor, which is useful for making small, quick changes while you're in the browser. As with all the other editors, any changes you make here will sync back to your Git repository. As you can see, CloudCannon provides basic editing without any configuration. But to get the most out of the platform, you have full control to fine-tune the editing experience. CloudCannon configuration typically lives in a global config file. So let's create one now. So I can come into the root of my site, create a new file, and I'll call it cloudcannon.config.yaml. And so any configuration that I want to set at a global level, I can put in here. And I'll come back to this file to show you how it works. There are 4 main ways to structure content on a Hugo site. Let's walk through how they work on CloudCannon. We'll start with Markdown. If we look at the source for these blog posts, you'll see this is a Markdown file. And by default, these will open in the content editor. The content editor will edit Markdown files without any configuration. To get it working in the visual editor, it will work automatically as long as the Markdown content is wrapped in a div without any other siblings. Let me show you what I mean there. Here's where the content's been output in the single layout, and it's in a div, and there's no other elements in this div. If you've set it up like this, then you'll be able to edit Markdown content in the visual editor. I can update the content, I can manipulate it, I can add headings, I can add images. And when I hit save, it's going to save those changes back to the original Markdown file in the repository. There are 2 things you might want to configure on CloudCannon for Markdown files. One is picking your Markdown engine. If you're just using the default one, you don't need to worry about this. If you're doing something custom and want to use a non-default Markdown engine, then you can set that up. The other thing is you can configure all of these WYSIWYG interfaces. For example, let's give the editors the ability to add a table. First, I'll open up my config file. You'll find a link to the configuring your toolbar section in our documentation in the written version of this tutorial, but it's under the editables key, and the type of editable region is content. Here I can define a list of WYSIWYG buttons that I want to be available in that toolbar. I want bold, I want italic, bulleted list, numbered list, image, table. Let's add the undo and redo too. So I save that. And now go back to my Markdown file. You can see this WYSIWYG bar has been updated. Now I have the ability to add a table. can add new rows, can delete rows. And this will work in the visual editor too. I'll add the table. And I don't have any styles for the table, which is why it just looks empty, but this is a table. And if I had styles, it would show. That's editing Markdown. Let's move on to HTML. HTML on a Hugo site lives in layouts. And I'll edit the layout for the index page. By default, none of the HTML will be editable by your content team. To make something editable, you come in and you add a class of editable like this. And you can put this class on the majority of elements. So here we have it on H1, paragraph, image, and a div. The type of element you put it on will indicate what type of editing interface is available. For example, if you put an editable on an image, all you can do is swap the image and change the alt tag. Putting it on an H1, you can update the text inside that H1. The most flexible is putting it on a div. You can add tables, you can add new headings, new paragraphs. So it's really up to you how much control you want to give your editing team. Once you've added the editable class, opening a page that uses this layout in the visual editor. Now, when you come in the visual editor, everywhere that you've put that editable class will highlight yellow when you move the mouse. When you click on it, it will turn blue. Then I'm free to edit this text in line. I can swap out the image. Let's find a new image. Blue on blue. Here's my paragraph. And I decided to make these ones not editable, so there's no yellow box around them. And so saving this is going to save it back to the layout. And one thing to keep in mind is if multiple content files are using this layout, it will impact all of those because it's going back to the layout. Next, we have the front matter. So the front matter is in the sidebar. I can completely customize how these fields display. We call each of one of these an input. Let's add a few more properties to the front matter. So we'll add background color is red. We'll add show banner false. And next event is 2022-06-06. And these are just random fields. I'm not actually using them anywhere. I just want to show you how to customize the interface for them. So let's see what those look like now. So CloudCannon has naming conventions where it will try to detect which input to show. So here I've ended the front matter name with color. So it's detected that I wanted to use a color picker. So now I can use this color picker. Show banner has false, so it automatically shows as a tick box. And then next event was a date, so it's automatically showing the date field. So that's the easiest way to configure inputs, is just using conventions. But you also have control to define them. And in this case, we'll do it at a global level in our global config file. So let's say I want this background color to actually show a code block here instead of a color picker. Let's head over to the global config file we created earlier. And we're going to add another key here of inputs. And first I'll give the name of the front matter variable. So it was background color. The type, I want to be code. And there's a full list of the available types in the CloudCannon documentation. And that would be enough, but I can also add options as well. So I can say, I want the tab size to be 4. I want the theme of the code block to be solarized dark. And I want the syntax highlighting to be, say, HTML. Now when I save that and head back to my file, it now shows as a code editor with HTML syntax highlighting. There's a few more things we can do here. We can add a description to give content editors a bit more context on what this field does. We can hide a field. Let's say I want show banner to be in the front matter, but I don't want it to show in CloudCannon. We'll do that next. And then I can manipulate this label. So let's do those three things. Add a description to this BG color, hide show banner, and then change this label here without actually changing the front matter. So we'll head back to our global config file. And I'll add a comment here into your favorite color. We'll add a new key for our show banner field. Which will say hidden true. And then for next event, we'll add a label of future event. So let's see what that did. So we have a little description here to enter our favorite color. The show banner is now gone. And then future event, it's showing future event when the front matter key is actually next event. That's a really high-level overview of what you can do by customizing the inputs. One thing content editors can get confused about is why is there a difference between these two interfaces? I edit some content here and some over here. And to you as a developer, it makes sense. One's front matter, one's HTML or Markdown content, but the content editor doesn't know or care why there's a difference. And so ideally, you can completely get rid of this front matter sidebar and do all the editing directly on the page. And I'll show you how you can do that. Let's use this description somewhere. I'll output it in this hero, just for the sake of the demo. So we'll go over to the layout. And below the image, output rams.description in a paragraph. Okay, so now we've got this field here, outputting here. In CloudCannon, there's a concept called visual data binding. It's the idea that I want to tell CloudCannon that this data here is sourced from the front matter over here. All it takes to do that is adding an HTML attribute. So here's our paragraph. We can say data CMS bind is hashtag description. And that's it. So now that paragraph gets a yellow box, just like the other ones. Clicking on that will give this edit icon. And now I can update this content here. It's not updating live like the other content. There's another concept called visual data previewing that we can detect a change to a front matter variable and update it on the page. I'll show you an easy way to do that, but for now, that's an easy way to update front matter. For this next example, I'm switching to a different template. This is a Migrate template. It's available MIT license on CloudCannon. CloudCannon has a concept called structures, which is a type of array which supports a set of predefined objects. So we have one set up here called content blocks. So think of content blocks as an array with all these different types of components in it. I can rearrange these components, I can remove them, and then I can add a new one. And so adding a new one, these are all the components that are available for this structure. I can also update a component as well. Let's take that hero, prepare for a new future that's populating that. our work is populating this background image and then the link. When you pair structures with visual data binding, which I showed you before, and visual data previews, which I promised to show you now, you have a powerful page builder, which behaves in a really similar way to Squarespace, except you have complete control over the components and the editing experience. This is an extremely powerful workflow, but it can take some configuration to get set up. And so that's why we've created a library called Bookshop to automate this process. It's an open source component library for Hugo and other static site generators. Simple to set up, tight integration into CloudCannon, handles the majority of the setup. I'll give a really quick tour of Bookshop now. We have some more tutorials that go a lot deeper into it. As an editing experience, I don't need to worry about this sidebar at all. Bookshop knows that these are all page components. I can rearrange them. I can click the down arrow there to move them around. I can delete one. I can update content. And the updates show live here. I can add a new component. All of these fields are completely customizable. You can use the inputs config to enhance the editing interface and really empower your editors to create pages completely from scratch. To get started with Bookshop, take a look at the Hugo Starter Guide in the Bookshop repository, or have a look at our tutorial section for a Bootstrap to Hugo plus Bookshop tutorial. It will show you step by step how to do that. The final type of data to look at is our data files. And these can be configured in exactly the same way as the inputs config. If I wanted to configure this to be a select box or color picker or whatever I want, I would do it the same in that global config file. The next section is on collaborating with your team. You can give your team access to update your website by sharing it with them. And there are multiple ways to do this. If we go into settings and collaborators, I could add a collaborator here, enter their email address, and then select a level. Technical editors have the source editor, editors do not. That would give an individual access to update the content on this website. We also have client sharing, which is a way of sharing the site without them needing a CloudCannon account. We type in a password here. Turn on password sharing. Then I can tell an editor to go to this address. It's my CloudVent address with /update at the end. That presents them with this password screen. Then I can type in the password and start editing the site. No account needed. I can also come into my settings and go to team. Here I can add people to my organization. They'll have access to all the sites on my account. And there's also a single sign-on, which is available on the enterprise plan. Projects is another interesting CloudCannon feature. CloudCannon is a Git-based CMS, and you can set up branching and staging workflows, PRs and branch merges. So we've got our site set up. It's got a Git repository attached to it. So now I can come in and create my first project. I'll just call this demo for now. And now I need to open the settings and select my repository. And I'll select the same repository as the site I connected. There it is there. I'm going to use the main branch. Now this has a list of sites that are connected to that repository. You might have different sites on different branches. Currently, I just have the one site attached. Now as a content editor, I can create a branch off this site and make edits without impacting the main branch. So I can click Add New Site here. I'll name this Staging Demo. It's already named the branch Staging Demo, and then I can create the site. So behind the scenes, this is creating a branch. Then it's creating a site on CloudCannon with that new branch. Then it's going to run the site build. and it's done. So now I have a clone of that site on a completely different branch. I can go through here and make wild edits and know that it's not going to impact that main branch. Maybe that's being used on production. And I can spend time making these changes, making sure everything looks right. Then when I'm happy with them and ready to get them on my main branch, I can come into this publishing tab and click publish then delete site. What that's going to do is it will merge the changes into the main site, delete that staging site that I set up. If that was my production site, it would be live. So that's a high level of the kind of Git workflows that you can have for content editors. The final part I want to show you in this Hugo Starter Guide is the hosting. So CloudCannon is an all-in-one CMS with hosting included. As we've already seen, every site gets their own cloudvent.net domain address, and it's hosted on a blazing fast CDN backed by Cloudflare. For a production site, you can point your own domain or use CloudCannon DNS, and you do that in your site settings. So I can come into custom domain, add my own domain here, and it will have instructions on how to point your domain at CloudCannon. Once I've done that and the DNS propagates, then we're good to go. That site will be live on that domain. And all sites get an automated SSL cert, can scale to meet any traffic demands. You can have custom routing and headers, handle form submissions, and a variety of authentication options. That should give you an overview of how to get the most out of CloudCannon for your Hugo site. If you're stuck or want to know the best way to go about setting something up on CloudCannon, we're always here to help. Reach out to support at any time. Happy CloudCannoning.